monitoring is a very controversial issue in the workplace. Some examples include telephone monitoring, video monitoring, and internet monitoring, including emails.
Some newer employee monitoring software on the market is instant messaging monitoring software, which reviews and stores instant messages. There's voice recognition software that tracks calls for certain words or phrases that employers want to track. And there's performance incentive software, which monitors employees' activities and ties it to a point system where they can earn gifts. As employee monitoring increases, the debate as to whether or not this policy should be practiced has reached new heights.
Hi, I'm Nate.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Aaron for the pro side.
Our first point is that employee monitoring will help misuse of company resources. Employee monitoring will help prevent misuse of company resources because the company will be able to stop a useless employee quickly after they are discovered. Employees do not usually discipline their employees for the occasional personal phone call, but at some point personal usage of company time can cause no work to be done and profits to be lost. For example, in Northern Illinois at Poplar Grove Airport, a programmer worked for a salary of $50,000, but always seemed to produce very little work after a long day in his office. The company installed Silent Watch and discovered he was visiting pornographic sites and exchanging sexually explicit emails. He was fired as soon as that was discovered. Without the monitoring, the company would have spent many more weeks wasting all their resources and money on this employee. The American Management Association did a study that found 27% of companies say that they've fired employees for misuse of office emails or internet connections, and 65% report some disciplinary measure for those offenses. If employees were being watched and used these resources for work-related issues, the company would be much better off.
Employee monitoring is only intended to protect the company from things like loss of property. Monitoring techniques, such as tracking emails of employees, make sure that no company trade secrets or business strategies are leaked. The fact that information can so easily be sent and saved, this is a main concern for companies. If employees are aware that they are being watched, it will discourage them from sending private company information or intellectual property. Monitoring would also be beneficial because it discourages internal theft from company employees. In addition, guarding against legal liability from resulting from employees is our next argument. There are many instances where companies have gotten into legal trouble because of court cases that involve computer-related crimes. In 1996, Prodigy was sued for libel because one of the members' posts which accused the investment firm of fraud. Also, a survey of 500 corporate security directors revealed that 98.6% had seen computer-related crimes and problems related to sexual harassment within the organization. All people in the company need to be monitored, including the CEOs and heads of companies, to avoid getting into legal trouble.
Our last argument to support employee monitoring is keeping performance up to par. If random monitoring is used, the company can benefit from better employee performance and minimum loss of productivity. It could help detect potential problems before they occur. For example, they see an employee is not negotiating well with a client, they can help them before the employee loses a client. Monitoring will keep the company's standards where they need to be and keep employees more focused on performing at their best.
I'm Kay.
I'm Christina.
And I'm Victoria, and we're the con side.
One major negative aspect to employee monitoring is that it can create a hostile work environment. It's crucial for workers to get along in the workplace in order to work in a civil atmosphere. If employee monitoring were to take place, employers might discover things about their employees which could create them to dislike one another. For example, if someone were to read an email about someone's personal life or social life, it could cause them to start to dislike one another, creating a hostile work environment.
Along with employee monitoring comes the issue of employee mistrust. Staff members who feel like they are not trusted are more likely to be less productive due to the fact that they feel a sense of decreased morale. They do not feel motivated to work their hardest when they feel deceived. An overzealous manager's monitoring system could create a big brother scenario that could anger employees, that could create a hostile work environment, which Kay just talked about. Either way you look at it, there must be limits placed on how much the internet is used at work. But this does not have to be through employee monitoring. We could put up blocks on certain sites instead. If your company makes internet access available to employees, then those employees should be required to read and sign some kind of acceptable use policy that states what they can and cannot do online with company computers.
One of the most obvious cons of employee monitoring is the lack of privacy. One of the most common methods used to monitor employees is to check an employee's email. According to the American Management Association, of the 43% of companies that monitor email, 73% use technology tools to automatically monitor email, and 40% assign an individual to manually read and review email. Nobody wants to feel like they're constantly being watched. Consider this scenario. What if an employee is having problems with their supervisor and needs to talk to someone over their head? If their supervisor is constantly monitoring their emails, the employee may have trouble discreetly addressing their issue to a higher-ranking employee. This can lead to the employee feeling cornered and powerless. What if an employee is writing a personal email during their lunch hour? Should their employer still be allowed to see this email even though they are not on the clock? If a coworker or supervisor were to discover something about another employee's personal life, it may lead to an uncomfortable situation in the workplace. This information could also be used to discriminate against the employee. A person's social life and work life should be kept separate. An employer should not have the right to invade their employee's privacy under these circumstances.
Inequality is another con to employee monitoring. Who is monitoring employees can make a huge difference. If the employees monitoring others are biased against certain members of a company, this can lead to a great amount of inequality. Who is to decide who has the capability to monitor others and who's monitoring them? The monitoring employee should be unbiased in all aspects. However, this is unrealistic and unavoidable. Say, for example, there's a smoker and a non-smoker working for the same company. The smoker steps out several times a day. He or she would be wasting 40 minutes of their paid time. Meanwhile, the non-smoking employee would be doing something non-work related for about the same amount of time, 40 minutes. If employee monitoring was to be practiced, it would be unfair for the non-smoking employee to face consequences for doing something not related to work, and the smoking employee gets away with taking breaks to have a cigarette. This is a controversial issue when talking about employee monitoring because all must be equal in the workplace, or else it also creates a hostile work environment.